Hey Booktube, we're back in the craft room and I am here to record my April wrap-up for 2018. I read more books than I thought I did, so I'm kind of pumped about that. I thought I wasn't going to read as many, but at the end of the month I pulled it out. So I will start with these, which I read all in one evening. Previously I had shown you issue 1 that I had read. I bought these. I had 2 and 3, and then I bought 4 and 5, and I actually have 6. I bought 6 since then, but I read volumes 2 through 5 of Princess Jellyfish by Akiko Higashimura, which is a manga, as you can see. It's all about a group of otaku who live in a rooming house, I guess you would call it, almost like an apartment block. And a land company is trying to take over that area and build something else, and they are trying to save it. Subsequently, our main character, Tsukimi, because it's always abbreviated, Tsukimi, and all of her friends are trying to save their place because they don't want to be kicked out, and they're enjoying themselves, and she has an affinity for jellyfish, which is why she's Princess Jellyfish. She meets this woman who ends up being a man who is the son of the current head of state or president or something like that. He's in the government, and so yeah, insanity ensues. It's humorous, it's light, it's easy to consume, and that's exactly what I wanted it for. I also have watched the anime. My friend turned me on to the anime and subsequently got the manga afterwards. The manga predates the anime. So, and the last one, volume 9, is the last of them, is coming out soon, so I'll probably get all of them and binge yet again at some point. So I read those. Now into the actual booky books that are not manga or graphic or anything. The first one I finished was A Book of American Martyrs by Joyce Carol Oates, which was raved about last year. It is, of course, the story of Augustus Voorhees, or Gus as he's referred to, who is killed by an evangelical person named Luther Dunphy, Gus being an abortion provider. So we follow the 2 parallel storylines of their families and what happens afterwards and their lives, etc., what caused them to be the way they are. It's a chunker of a book. It clocks in at, this was also my big book for April, 736 pages. So what do I have to say about this book? I think that it was really good up to a certain point. The last 200 pages were kind of pointless. I didn't need to know about the children finding each other later on in life or what they were up to. I really felt that it didn't add anything to the storyline. The background of Luther Dunphy was interesting, his motivations were interesting, and Gus's background and motivations, as well as his mother's behavior, was also very interesting. I found his wife to be a bit questionable. The grandmother having a second son was kind of useless. There was a lot going on in this book I found that could have not been there. Overall, I enjoyed it. Would I read it again? Probably not. Which is kind of sad. I thought it was going to be like a 5-star, this is on my best list, but it ended up only being a 3.5, maybe 4. And it's a doubtful 4, just because there was so much stuff I thought didn't need to be in it, and I didn't get why it was added. So I clearly am not in the camp that thinks it's the most amazing, masterful thing ever. Then I read, in I think it was one afternoon, The Soul of an Octopus, a surprising exploration into the wonder of consciousness by Cy Montgomery, which is a favorite of both Steve Donahue and Olive at over at A Book Olive. And it was okay. I recommend reading it if you want to read it, if you're interested. if octopuses entertain you in any way. But don't read it if you actually expect to get anything out of it in terms of understanding octopuses. I thought I was going to be like following, I thought this was going to be like almost like the March of the Penguins in book form, where I would be following an octopus who did something, like we're going to follow them as they go through their life cycle, which we kind of do with the second and third octopus we meet. There are 3 octopuses total, and then there's some side octopuses, but for the most part there's 3 major octopuses, actually. It tells you that octopus is plural is octopuses, not octopi, because of the root in Greek rather than in Latin, I believe. I could be wrong, but it's in the book and it's very early on, which I found to be a very interesting tidbit. There's lots of interesting tidbits. What I did not like was how often there's talking of suckers and tasting and touching and feeling. And I have I'm a hippie. I have no problem with hugging and touching and tasting and feeling. All good things. It's excessive. Every time she meets an octopus, she has to talk about how the octopus's tentacles are sucking on her and leaving little hickeys and tasting her, and how its neurons are tasting her neurons, and it's just too much. I wanted to like it. I wanted to love it. I was really gung-ho, and it wasn't anything like I thought I was going to get. Instead, it's a woman who meets 3 octopuses, plus a few other octopuses, and she travels from the East Coast to the West Coast to the Seattle Aquarium to watch octopuses have sex. And basically how she's met these octopuses and her relationship to their keepers and how long they live, and then going snorkeling and scuba diving to look at other octopuses. Not what I was expecting. If that's what you're expecting, this book is not for you. But there's some gorgeous pictures, and that's all good and fun, but yeah, no. Let down. Still, it was a good quick read. Like I said, I read it in an afternoon. It was pleasant, aside from the excessive amount of tasting. Yeah, so not a fan. 3 stars. If you want to read it, borrow it from a library. I know I'm really harsh. I've become very harsh, I think, in just how much I've read lately. I've become a very harsh critic. Then I picked up Sing Unburied Sing by Jesmyn Ward. It is on a bunch of lists. It has made a bunch of short lists, and I figured I have one. I got it from Book of the Month. I should pick it up. It was from September 2017. I liked the premise. Hey, we've got junkies and a road trip and ghosts. Oh my. And then I didn't like it. I didn't like it. I didn't. The ghosts were okay. It's a little too much, if I may say. Like, do we need another book? Do we need another book like this? I don't know that we do. We're following JoJo, our main character, and all I could think of, it is JoJo, yes, and all I could think of was Get Back by the Beatles, like, JoJo was a man, da, 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 da. Yes, exactly, that's what I was doing the entire time, as he's taking care of his little sister, going with his mother, who's a junkie who has not a maternal bone in her body, to pick up his father, who is in jail. By the way, there's copious amounts of the use of the N-word in here, which I think at this point in our lives does not need to be in a book. Just because you're a person of color does not mean you need to resort to using it for a purpose. It does not serve a purpose in here. Yeah, the dude is the dude's father is a giant raving racist. The ghosts were cool. I thought they were okay. I thought throwing them in the way they did and then the whole weird thing at the end with them was a bit gauche. Overall, I think if you wanted to attempt it better, it should have been longer. And this person has clearly never seen someone overdose, or they would have written it better. So, yeah, I don't know how... 2 stars. 3, maybe. If you want to read it, it's okay. It's quick. It's painless. It's not a long book. It's like less than 300 pages. I think it's 250 or something. Oh, no. We have 285 pages. 285 pages, so not a lot. The font is really big in my edition. Read it if you want to see what all the fuss is about, but then I pulled into Jane Steele, a novel by Lindsay Fay, which is an attempt to do Jane Eyre. An attempt. So in this we have Jane Steele, who is not Jane Eyre, but whose favorite book is Jane Eyre, and her life magically mirrors Jane Eyre. And for some reason she has the omnipotence to be able to say, oh, this is like Jane Eyre, or in this point in Jane Eyre, this is what would be occurring. However, what? What? Mr. Rochester is kind of a love interest, not really, in their Thornfield Hall, but they're all secretly assassins. It was a good quick read. I think I would have liked it if I didn't read Jane Eyre. If you've never read Jane Eyre and you don't know Jane Eyre, this will be a great book. If you take away the fact that Jane Eyre is one of my top 5 of all-time favorite books, if you have never read Jane Eyre, great, you'll love it. If you have, you might like it. If it's one of your favorite books, just skip this. Just do. I love serial killers, and I love reading about serial killers and murderers and all kinds of fierce and wonderful women. This did nothing for me. It was a quick read. I thought it was YA, actually. At one point I was like, this is YA, but then there was some heavy petting, and I thought, no, I don't think they'd put that in YA. So in the grand scheme of things, it was an okay read. I'm not keeping it. The last thing I read this and finished this last month in April was The Perfume Burned His Eyes, a novel by Michael Imperioli, who is Christopher Moltisanti in The Sopranos, and is also in Alex Inc., the new show that stars Zach Braff. He's actually really good in it. It's put out by Akashic Press. I will disclaim that I got this. It's a free ARC. Put my name in, and I got it. This is a story about a young boy, Matt, who also goes by the name Tim, because of Lou Reed. Moves from moves from Queens to Manhattan in New York during his formidable teenage years, the later teenage years, high school, and what his life is like. He also happens to move into the building that is currently housing Lou Reed, because in this Lou Reed is not dead, because this is in the 60s or 70s, 1976. So Lou Reed is past his prime, but he's not yet descended into madness. He's in full-blown junkiedom. And this boy meets and befriends him, and at the same time he has a girlfriend who's not really his girlfriend, who happens to be a prostitute, who eventually kills herself. I liked the writing. I thought it was very good. I thought the story was okay. Here's the thing. I think if I read this at 21, it would have been like one of those aha moment mind-blowing books that would have been like something I really dug and would have recommended to all of my friends and like thrown at them. But because I'm 35 and I'm old and I'm crusty, this is no longer one of those books. However, he did write a really good book. And if you're younger, or if you can suspend the crustiness just a little bit, it's a great coming-of-age novel about a young boy in Queens who's dealing with some serious friggin' things going on. Now, I will say that the introduction bit where we meet his friend who is large just didn't need to be there, and the whole entire going to the place to eat with the French fries, it was pointless. But all in all, not a horrible book. I'd give it 3 stars. It's a solid read. If you want to pick it up and you like New York and Lou Reed, it's probably going to be an okay read for you. If you're under the age of 25, it's probably going to be an aha book if you're really into rock and roll, old school rock and roll, and really gritty things from New York. But that seems to be where it would sit and fit. It was okay. So, April, not exactly the best month for reading, but that's okay. It was a rough month. I am currently reading Brent Weeks's The Black Prism, the first book in the Lightbringer series, and so I have high hopes for reading other things, and I won't be too sad I mean, they can't be good months every month, right? So until I see you later, bye-bye.